Welcome to part 2 of our conversation with Tasha. Let's jump back into it. I'm going to preface this with something that seems unrelated.
Okay.
I'm a Christian, and so I go to church, and one of the big discussions about church, because churches are always trying to grow, no matter what size. For whatever reason, they're always trying to grow. But there's always a difference between a small church, which is like maybe 50 to 200 people, and a mega church, which you've seen, which are like 2,000, 1,800 people, right?
Yeah.
And the people that love the small churches love the aspect of, I know my community, I know the people next to me, we talk, we go do these things together. And there's always that fear of when you get to that like 1,500, 2,000 person level, you can't, because it's just impossible to maintain that level of connection with every single person in that church. And so as you've grown to also almost like you said, 2,400 people, right? 2,400, 2,800 people. How do you intentionally maintain that quality of connection and community, even despite the size and scale of the entire thing?
I feel like I kind of figured out a bit of a cheat code at some point because I can't talk one to one with everybody. I have members of the community who I have had one to one conversations with, some that I've had more than one but they're usually for very specific reasons. I have a very dear mom friend in the community. We talk every other week, but we talk about like the intersection of nonprofit work and being a mom. And then I have, people where there's clear collaborations happening. We talk more frequently. But if I, like you had noted, have focused in on everyone having to have me as the point of contact, we never could have grown any further. And so for us, our cheat code has kind of been, okay, well, any week you want to, you get to talk to one other person from this community. They'll be a part of the community. You're a part of the community. I'm going to match make it to some degree so you meet somebody where it makes sense for you to meet them. But ultimately, you're going to feel like a part of the community as often as you want to feel like you're part of the community. And that flexibility, I think, is really important when we ignore how often, if we put guardrails on something and say, no, you must show up 2 times a week to this class from 2 till 4, you're going to immediately opt out a huge number of people who may actually be great community members. They just can't invest the same way as another person could. And so the focus on deep versus wide, we do no large group Zoom calls to date. And then this won't come out until afterwards, but maybe I can tell you how it goes later. We are actually doing our first Idealist Day that's being put on by idealist.org. And the idea being come into community for a period of time with others in your network and share about kindnesses, things that are inspiring you. And so we're actually going to workshop that for the first time Friday. But that's the first time we're doing a large scale group meetup among an opportunity for all members. So I think I knew I could only scale so far if the idea was that we were always going to come together and I was going to be the central voice talking to an audience. And instead, we've really gone, no, the community has to be talking to each other. How do we manufacture that? So that's been the focus of scaling for us, has been word of mouth. Some people talk about us. That's awesome. All of you who do so, thank you. And the others, that's okay. So I think it's grown more sustainably by focusing on that depth versus breadth.
I wonder, since you're creating these big communities and international communities, you've mentioned even completely different cultures.
Yeah.
That can create some difficult conversations and situations, I wonder.
Yes.
Do you have an example of some difficult conversation that you had with a community member where something was not aligning?
Yes, I'm happy to. So one of the biggest challenges to date has been that North American culture, and I'll say Canadians, we'll throw in with the Americans on this,
Sorry.
That's okay. We're going to throw in together. I'm okay. For this group, we're going to say, yes, let's do this. Very time sensitive. very time sensitive when it comes to a meeting. So, 1 to 2 minutes late, acceptable, right? And then if you're 5 minutes late, I hope you were in an emergency situation, kind of. And then there's the Europeans, we're still on time, but not so much. And then we have this wonderful group across Africa, India, all over the rest of the world where time does not work quite the same way. And I didn't understand it in depth enough. We frequently had members who were showing up 20 minutes late to a 30-minute call. What do you do with that? How long does the other person sit on the call? They very much want to build connections and communities across the world because it's very valuable for them to get an experience talking to somebody in nonprofit in the US who probably has a different opportunities for networking, different access to potential resources that you hear about great resources from other people, not from searching it on the internet and finding them, right? So I know the value of the conversations is very high for them. We also are very much like, listen, Hive chat etiquette says we respect each other's time. We get in touch if we're going to be late, all of those pieces. And I've had some very honest conversations with some of our members to go, listen, I want to keep you coming to these chats. How do we continue this? Please understand, I can't keep putting you in chats and you not showing up. Like, this is not good for you. It's not good for me. There's this piece here. And ultimately, I went to one of my closest community members. He's one of our ambassadors and is actually a coach through the Christian Alliance for Orphans. Addie, amazing human. And I said, can you help me? I'm going to be really honest in the most middle-aged white mom way. And can you please help me understand what's happening here? Because I don't know. And you're a Nigerian coach across Africa. You're here in the US. Could you help me navigate this really uncomfortable position I'm in a way that is culturally sensitive, that I can say this without totally understanding all of it? And he was so generous with his time and his energy, but I had to go and have that conversation with him first, and then a few other people. And then I felt more comfortable at least being able to engage from there. But I needed to check myself because I don't know everything and come in with a lot of vulnerability on my side to try to make sure that I could meet our members where they were at in a kind and caring way.
I love that.
Thanks. Still uncomfortable. It was very uncomfortable, right? But
and courageous, right? Because it's uncomfortable because it is vulnerable. And especially for leaders, I hear new leaders feeling that pressure that a leader should know and leader should lead. And for them, it means I don't want to look stupid or that I don't know something. And I'm seeing and hearing from you that you really allow yourself, well, I don't know everything, and that's okay. And I would love your support to help me get through this.
Yeah, thank you. I think I've never been more aware of when I was a manager, which I've been a manager in a couple roles in the past, and how different that is now from falling into a leadership role. Because it feels very different. I was a great manager. I was great to follow in behind a bunch of younger folks and go, oh man, well, this wasn't done all that well. Let me fix this. And like I said, I like doing. Doing is not a problem for me. I am good at implementing and I'm good at following around and making sure things are done properly. Learning how to be a leader has been an entirely different experience and definitely one that's a lot more vulnerable than I had realized.
Yeah.
What else is different? What else have you noticed as the differences?
The other differences for me with management versus leadership is I have my preconceived notions about what potentially the community needs. And I can tell that I've really shifted into another state of being by going into conversations and just listening as much as possible. And being the quietest person in the room sometimes is actually much better. And I'm naturally extroverted, naturally loud. That's something I've had to really work hard on to back myself out and let other voices be much louder than mine and speak up for others so that they can kind of take on those elevated positions. And I don't know that leaders always look at that as part of what they're meant to do, because maybe sometimes it kind of flows up, or it naturally feels like it should flow up to a voice box of a person. But I actually, when I look at community, I'm going, no, actually, I think you walk along everybody who's sitting here and go, here's a great voice for today. Here's a great voice. Like, how do we bring up each individual voice so that there isn't this kind of hierarchy in the community?
Hmm. I feel like there's so many thought pieces on LinkedIn about that idea of like just listen and be open and be curious. Where do you think those leaders are missing the mark in terms of they see it, they understand that's the principle, maybe they ask questions a little bit, but then they still kind of plow ahead with their idea or say this is a way we're going to do it. So where do you think that gap is between seeing all this stuff and knowing that that's the right thing to do and trying to implement it, but missing the mark and not actually doing it?
I think sometimes we're building out entire systems with such a small subset of voices. Like the listening tour was 10 people, and then you've made a whole bunch of decisions for 1,000 people based on 10. That's
Mm,
pretty a small group, right? Like, that's not very
yeah.
significant. And I'm gonna sound like an insane person, but I do 3 calls every Thursday on our community chats. I take someone at 8:30, 12:30, and 4:30, and then the rest of my team says that this is bananas. But then throughout the rest of the week, I sprinkle in, 3, 4 conversations of 30 minutes with the community members. I'm in conversation with people on LinkedIn. I don't know how often I could keep this up at this pace forever, but I have my own team who now goes into conversations and reports back. I have my ambassadors, and I'm going, what are you hearing? And so I feel like trying to bring in as many voices as possible is really, really critical. And instead of building out an entire idea, like a plan for a year from now, and this will bite me in the ass, I'm sure, at some point, but instead of going, let's move forward one step, and then take the read of the, and like, instead of building out this perfect plan for a year from now, we're evolving it again in real time with what
Hmm.
the nonprofit world has changed so much since I started this community. I can't imagine if I built it with what I were my assumptions last time, like 2 years ago, October. They are
Yeah.
so incorrect now, and not because they were incorrect when I first thought them. It's that nonprofit has changed that much in the last 2 years,
Hmm.
especially in the U.S. But
Yeah.
de facto, it's influencing everywhere, and I can see that
Yeah.
happening. Right?
Hmm.
So I'm hearing another strength of being adaptable and being able to quickly pivot based on the new information. What would you say for a leader that they're noticing there's a shift on their team and people are becoming disengaged?
That's a
Mm.
really good question. I had something similar come up like this earlier in the summer. I think too often my schedule was looking nuts. I thought, I can't do this many one-to-ones with some of my team
Hmm.
members. I'm just going to push everyone into a group marketing meeting. And it was very apparent very quickly that there's a couple of us who are extreme extroverts and can talk about everything, and we get in very fast. And unfortunately, that worked very poorly for one of my more introverted team members who really needed me by myself for a little short period of time. And I don't know that that's going to be how we continue indefinitely, but it was very apparent quickly that I was failing the needs of that team member by putting us all into one group conversation. My WhatsApp channels look bananas because I have one big group talk and then I have multiple little ones, but that's just how communication works better. So yeah, that was a big misstep on my part, but I feel like I recognized it a little quicker. That I'm glad I recognized it that fast. But you could just, the whole tone of that big group meeting was tough. And so I think disengagement to me usually means that it doesn't have to be that something's wrong on the team. It could be something totally external to your workplace, to be fair, that's going on
Hmm.
in that person's life. But I think a really great leader is also looking at the tone of the room, which I know tone
Hmm.
is so hard to manage, but I think it's something we have to learn as a skill as a leader, to be able to feel the room a little bit, and figure out what is the adjustment that we could make to change that tone.
For somebody that's been a manager and wants to be a great leader, what would be one of the first steps that they could take to maybe read the room and know the tone? What is the tone? Let's say if they are not very strong in that interpersonal skills in reading the room.
We have started out every meeting. I budget time, even in my one-to-ones, to go, how are things going? And we have 5 to 10 minutes of just talking about life and my life and their lives, right, in a more meaningful way. Some of that is work related. Some of that is we're a completely remote team on all sides of the world at the moment. So, which is very cool. I love that I get to have that. But my morning coffee is their late afternoon snack time, right? So our time frames are often quite different. How's the day been going? And we do that before we jump into task-based work, and where we're maybe at in the work that's going forward. I end every call with what do you need from me to make the rest of the week go well? That's really helped in tone, because if they go, oh, well, no, everything's fine, but everything's fine. And it's a little bit, like that inflection piece is real, to kind of feel like I'm getting fluffed off, not meaning it in a bad way, but sometimes there's busy fluffed off, and there's like, no, this woman is driving me nuts now, fluffed off. So I don't know, maybe you guys would know this better than me. Is there like an EQ, emotional intelligence course that people can take? Like, I think that's a real thing, right? How did we all learn this when we were growing up, right? Like, I think maybe that's part of what leaders need to really think about investing in, if that's what you want to be, is a leader. Is emotional intelligence is so critical. And I don't think I picked up on that being part of what I was doing.
Well, you're talking to the right person. Lucie is here. She can help you with that.
Yay, Lucie. We clearly need to talk about that more.
We have multiple assessments and might be available.
Yeah. So I think that's really important, right? And you can't make the assumption that your entire team is sitting at the same level you are, or vice versa. But that's something that people have to get figured out, in my mind.
Yeah. You've mentioned being fully virtual. Oftentimes that's the challenge, that people lose the connection and feeling connected and feel like that part that they belong to that team, because they are working often, especially individual contributors, where they work independently. What would you say a leader could do to help increase that sense of belonging on the team?
I am very quick to try to give the wins to my team as much as possible. I get lovely messages as the face and voice of the nonprofit hive. I'm very, very blessed to have many people reach out to me and go, oh, I just had the most amazing chat, or I just got that. Like, I get a lot of those messages, which is great. I'm so thankful. Anybody who's listening, please keep sending those, because on the days that are really hard, I need those, and that helps me keep going. But I pass them off to our team as much as possible to go, hey, look, this person's so thankful that I'll call her name out because she's amazing, Nina, edited this video from this Hive interview that I did, that then you made an article, you got it out there, you made them the collateral. Yes, you're the marketing person, but I could not have done this if you did not take all these next steps. And so this is maybe part of my win, because I did the initial video, but the rest is you, man. You got this out there to the world, and look at how beautiful and impactful it was for people to hear this. And yeah, I truly try to take the time to not gloss over the wins and the kind messages, and instead pass them on to my team, pass them on to the ambassadors. We just blew past 14,000 followers on LinkedIn the other day, and that was the first thing I did. I saw it creeped over by 2, sent that message to the ambassadors, and was like, look at you guys out there talking about us. This is amazing. Thank you so much for what you're doing. And I do it in the moment, which maybe breaks up workflow and is not great for other people who get scattered. But if I don't do it then, I often forget. So I do try to celebrate the wins with the rest of our members whenever I can.
I love that.
Yeah. One thing about communities, if you were talking to somebody that was a solopreneur or entrepreneur, and they said, "Hey, I want to build a community of these people, of these followers," what are like, what's like one or two things you'd want them to make sure they like got on top of right away?
Yeah. We've talked about this a little bit, but there's the, real community is a complete, you have to give up some control, right? If you're trying to curate all the conditions for the right community, it's probably not right for anybody, because community is very much an ecosystem. They talk about like
Mm.
community being organic and this beautiful, breathable ecosystem. There's lots of people who talk about it in very flowery, nature-based language, but it really is like it's based on relationships, right? So if you're trying to control all the relationships and how your community members engage with each other, I think we've all been concerned, and I still have those moments myself. What's being said? If I let control of this go, what do people
Mm.
say? How can it come back to bite me as the leader? I do think there's always some inherent risk to letting others have some measure of control on the conditions. But I think that's the only way to really get to real relationship building. I think the other piece I would say, I see a lot of people building community and really they're just talking at an audience. And that's okay. That's not a problem, but I wouldn't call that a community. I would call that an
Mm.
audience. And those are two very different things. You're looking at getting different things out of them. Um, and I guess the last thing that keeps coming up for me is that community is really consistent. So if you're a leader and you're looking at building community, your consistency and care is going to matter more than how much you do it. So for me, that looked like, hey, early days, we just started doing Hive interviews. I did one with Chris actually forever ago. We've released one of those a week ever since the week we committed to doing those. We have not missed a
Mm.
single week. And that was a consistency we could give. And then over time, we started releasing articles once a month when we started. Now it's every week as well. But it's easier to scale up in community consistency and care than to blast out the gate, have this crazy plan of community engagement, and then
Mm.
stop. And because I think our feelings of being cared for get really deeply tied to consistency. And when consistency disappears, that feeling that we care also drops off. So as a leader,
Yep.
maybe doing a huge round table is not possible every week, but is it possible every month that you can put that in the calendar and it is sacrosanct within your team? This happens no matter what. We do not cancel this. We do not move
Mm.
this. It happens. I think people are looking for consistency right now because the world is a wild place, right? So I don't know. Those would be
That's
the
right.
things that seem to have mattered the most, at least in my community.
Yeah. And let's also imagine somebody skipped the first part of this episode,
Oh, sure.
opened up the second part of this episode, skipped everything we just talked about, and fast forwarded to just this moment in the episode.
Okay.
What would be one to two big takeaways you would have for them about that transition from being a manager to a leader and gain that confidence and or at least the comfortability in these hard conversations?
Yeah. I think being a leader sometimes means like getting out there and saying that you see people. You need to be someone who notices things. I think
Mm.
at the beginning of this you said like I'm a believer in people. I love passionate people. I like to get out there, and so it's less about what I see in them, but like what do they want me to see in them, right? Like what do they want to be known for?
Mm.
And I think that's really been big, is like visibility and value, like feeling valued is a critical part of what being a leader has meant for me, and that transition into being a leader. And vulnerability is just in the opposite direction. I have to be me if I want them to be comfortable being them out there. And that means that I probably need to showcase all the things that I'm doing horribly in order for them to feel comfortable telling me any things that feel they're not doing all that well. And I'm just soak in all the discomfort. And because I do think it's a muscle that it does get easier when you admit that you don't know something and that you go to your group and go, anybody else know about how to do this? Right. And yeah, that would be my places to start.
Tasha, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your experiences and your thoughts on everything. How can the people find you if they're like, I want to join this hive, I want to be part of this, I want to talk to Tasha because she can help me build a community? How can they reach you? How can they support your work?
Sure. So I am loud on LinkedIn, is what my friends have told me I am. So you will find me on LinkedIn most weekdays, talking about things that range from community to nonprofit and everything in between. Sometimes it's a parenting post where I tend to be the most vulnerable, going, how did I get here? And then I have the nonprofithive.com website. You're welcome to join. It is a completely free community, and it's an engage as much or as little as you would feel like kind of group. So would love to see you there as well.
Yes, everybody needs to join, even if you're not in the nonprofit space. Lucie, you should join. You should get in there and learn more about the space.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, there's a nonprofit part of Mind Victory in the future, possibly. So who knows
Very cool.
what can happen?
Exactly. Tasha, it's been such a pleasure having you here. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been great.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Lucie. This was really fun.
Thank you, Tasha.
And Lucie, what else do you have for the people? How can they find you and reach you?
Many different ways on LinkedIn. One of the ways. If I don't answer right away, which is possible, that I'm quiet on LinkedIn. I'm not like Tasha yet. So send me an email, lucie@mindvictory.com, or contact me through my website. I also offer free saboteur assessment and debrief to find out what are your survival brain strategies that get in the way of your well-being, your performance, your vulnerability, your leadership and love for people. So where you can find out what's that's getting in the way and find strategies to move forward, to become the best leader you can be. And what about you, Chris? How people can find you and reach you?
Yeah, I am running a 5-day course this November on mastering difficult conversations and using your authentic voice and getting in there and actually saying these hard things, whether it's up, down, across, managing up, talking to giving feedback. It's going to be a 5-day. We're just going to dive in real fast and real deep and get in there and just be authentic to you and get comfortable with these hard conversations. So you can find more information at my website, myleadershippotential.com/trust. But otherwise, I'll keep it in the show notes and you'll hear all about it. So thank you, everybody. Thank you again, Tasha, for being here.
Thank you, Tasha.